Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Cold Hard Truth podcast. I'm Jack Smith.
I'm Srikar.
And I'm Anish Gupta.
And week one is in the books. We got week two coming to you today. It's our week one recap episode. And now, like with our new updated episode schedule, we're also going to roll in week one picks in this episode as well. So you'll get a week one recap, some week two picks. It's going to be great. Finally got football back. So many little storylines to talk about. We were just talking about the Wentz QBR and Zach Wilson and week two fantasy lineups. I mean, fantasy football and football, it's all back in the swing of things, and we could not be more excited. Guys, how did week one go for you guys? And what do you guys want to talk about first?
Well, as a Niner fan, week one gave me a little bit of a scare, a little bit of heartbreak, a little bit of joy, everything you'd want out of a football week one. So I guess that's how it went. Anish, on the other hand, I mean, we'll speak about it later in the episode. But let's talk about that Thursday night game, man. Dak Prescott is back. And obviously it was a heartbreaking loss for the Cowboys. But, Dak Prescott, he can make any throw. Like, I'm confident in him making any throw. And throughout the course of the game, I think it just went from, being more nervous about Dak to being more and more confident in his play. And I think if Prescott can play that well on a consistent basis, and, I definitely think he can, I think the Cowboys are definitely the favorite to win the NFC East because Ryan Fitzpatrick's obviously hurt for Washington. I don't know how that's going to shake things up, but I think the Cowboys are definitely the favorite there. But I mean, you look at Michael Gallup's injury, Collins is suspended, DeMarcus Lawrence just got hurt. Obviously, that's all bad, but I think there's definitely reason for optimism with the Cowboys, and I think Dak is the main reason why, and him being back is so huge for this offense. So really proud of Dak, and I'm really glad to see him back on the field.
When I watched the game, like context, I was never like a huge Dak Prescott fan. I always said Wentz was better and stuff like that. But on Thursday night, that game, just seeing him, I think he threw for 403 yards and like 3 touchdowns. It was amazing what he did off the ankle. He looked a little shaky running out the pocket, especially on his left side, but he was tremendous. Like some of the throws he made, the one to Cooper, it was kind of like a deep cross into the end zone. It was perfect. And I was going to say this, Dak and Kyler are 2 quarterbacks that I can see that can throw themselves in the top 5 conversation this year. I think they're already creeping up to a guy like Lamar Jackson. I think those two are already doing that. And I think over the course of the season, if they keep this up, I genuinely could see them push for a top 5 convo. Dak was amazing in terms of, again, just, I think he remained poised throughout the game. He had a couple of drives where he just had to make the play, and he did. And obviously he, there were some field goals that they missed. Kicking game was kind of subpar. And, it's Tom Brady. Like, it's hard stopping him once he has like a minute left, but I thought he made all the plays necessary to win that game. And, just luck of the draw, they couldn't finish it off. But this is a great sign for Cowboys fans going forward. I think that's what everyone took away from that game. And yeah, you're right. There are some concerns, right? Lyle Collins suspended for 5 games. And then you mentioned the injury to Marcus Lawrence, which is why I'm not going to say the Cowboys are locked to win the East. But there's still, positive signs going forward, especially for this offense, which showed no signs of slowing down. I think Zeke is going to have a way better game in terms of running the football. I thought he still had a good game just because of how well he was in pass protection. But I think Dak is, fortified. He's still the leader of this offense. He's still playing great. And I'm so glad that he's back for the Dallas Cowboys because, you never want to see a player kind of injured. So, good to see Dak back.
Yeah, I think the thing I noticed most with Dak, it wasn't his arm. It wasn't, his mobility like it normally is. He just looked very comfortable for a player coming back off of multiple different injuries that really could derail his year or his career. He looked awfully comfortable in the pocket when there was pass rush coming, just making throws. His arm didn't look the same. You're right, Anish. He wasn't as mobile as he normally was. But what I was looking for most in week one, does Dak Prescott look the same mentally? Like, is the game still going at the same speed for him? Is he ready for this yet? Because a lot of people in Bengals preseason camp, Joe Burrow did not look ready to play football yet at a starting NFL speed level. And so that was one thing that we were a little worried about. And that's one thing I kind of had thought in the back of my head, I don't know if Dak is ready for this yet. And against the Tampa Bay defense, he showed up, he stepped in. And, while he didn't have the same zip to his passes, he couldn't run like he normally does. He looked comfortable. He looked probably even more comfortable than he's looked in years past. And that's what I was really impressed by. And that's kind of that number one building block that you're looking for if you're Dak Prescott to kind of step on this year and get even higher. Throwing 400 yards helps too.
Quick context. he didn't have like a full week of practice since July. And then
Mhm.
also, I just thought, again, poise, like to do that without a
Yep.
full week of practice. Imagine what he could do with, proper time and like really getting back into it. So that's also
Yeah.
huge.
And the arm strength thing, it could be an issue, but also he showed a lot of touch. And we've seen multiple players this preseason and already this season where arm strength has kind of been a little bit of a caveat. You look at Trey Lance and some of the throws he made in the preseason. Derek Carr threw an interception in the red zone. He just threw it a little too hard for his receiver. So Dak being able to develop that touch, the strength will come back, but the level of poise that he showed, the touch on the football, being able to command an offense, those are the intangible things that some quarterbacks after an injury never get back, or even a coaching change. So to see Dak have that in the pocket against the Tampa Bay defense the entire game, and even taking the leads at points, I think Cowboys fans, NFL fans, Dak fans should be really impressed and inspired by what he did. And it really made me kind of change what I've been thinking about the Cowboys kind of for the entire season.
There you go.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. All right. So the next thing we want to talk about is someone who, probably didn't look quite as poised, which was Zach Wilson. He had a really tough start to the game because of the Jets offensive line. The Jets offensive line was struggling. The Panthers defense is underrated for sure. They got a lot of great pass rushers, but Zach Wilson being pressure on almost every play, and he had an absolutely horrible start. He rebounded pretty well, but just fell off a little bit short. I want to know what your guys' thoughts on Zach Wilson's day were, the Jets offensive line, the way he kind of bounced back, and on that kind of game in general.
Yeah, the stat line for Zach Wilson was bad. 258 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, a 28.9 QBR. But as Jack said, like he had no chance. Like the Panthers were always just on him. 6 sacks, 10 QB hits. If you're a rookie QB in your first regular season game and you're seeing that type of pressure, you're screwed. You are set up to fail right there. And it's something that we've seen in the past from the Jets, which is my biggest issue. The offensive line was always just a problem with Sam Darnold. And with Zach Wilson, I was hoping the offensive line would be somewhat better. They made a lot of additions. Of course, they have Mekhi Becton, who's now hurt. Elijah Vera Tucker, they traded up for him. It just feels like nothing has changed. And Zach Wilson is going to go through the same stuff that Sam Darnold did, which is why I'm a little bit concerned. But, it's still week 1. Let's see if they can piece things together. Now, Mekhi Becton, I mentioned earlier, like, if I forget how long he's gone, but
that's a big
4 to 6.
That's a big loss right there. And I don't know who their left tackle is right now. So that just makes the offensive line situation even worse. But Zach Wilson, I'm not going to judge him after 1 week fully. But while I don't blame the offensive line for all of his struggles, he still was not that great, but I think it's a growing process for Zach Wilson. I think he will probably get better over time, and I like the system that he's in, but I need the offensive line to do better for him.
Yeah, so, after watching what I called the Jack Smith Bowl, Darnold versus Zach Wilson, I agree. The first half was very, very shaky, and as someone who's very high on Zach Wilson, obviously after doing a bunch of comparisons, the second half, I thought he looked pretty good. The throw to Corey Davis was one of my favorite throws of the entire week 1. I thought it was a really good, powerful, good touch on it, good velocity from, really on the run. And a lot of the plays, it was just a little bit of a similarity that you saw with Sam Darnold in his first few years, just running out the pocket right away. And that's something that I'm scared about because I don't want his mechanics to kind of, fold and start to get a little bit bad. And, I thought the Jets would be better this year compared to last. I thought they would win, a few more games. And, now with the injury with Becton, a little bit concerning. That game was, I believe, 19-14, but it was not that close in my opinion. I thought the Panthers really, handed the Jets their business. And that pick, I look back on it again. It was just a good read by Shaq Thompson. I wouldn't necessarily blame Zach Wilson too much on that throw. But, I think just for him, it's just, the O-line needs work. It still does. Like I said, rebuilding it takes time. And they're all young guys, so not really full on veterans there. There's no Nick Mangold to be your center for good 10-14 years. So unfortunately, someone like him is not there. But I think for the Jets, it's going to be growing pains. And for Zach Wilson specifically, that too, I think his rookie year, everyone expected it to be, a little bit shaky, but a lot of people had it for offensive rookie of the year in terms of statistically. I think that's probably what they were banking on. So let's see how they do. But again, running game was inconsistent. I like Corey Davis. I'm very, very high on him. So if you guys have him in fantasy leagues, don't be afraid to start a guy like him. I think he's a good weapon that Zach can rely on. But other than that, they've got a lot of growing pains that they need to work on, especially on the offensive side.
Yeah, the first half looked a lot like same old Jets. I was thinking, watching through that entire half, well, another season just like last year. But the second half showed me a lot of promise. The defense actually really stepped up against Darnold and Christian McCaffrey and the rest of the Panthers, and the offense started to get going. Zach Wilson, I thought, had a really impressive second half. And yeah, his end of the game stat line was not great. I really think he showed players a lot, and he showed, I think, Jets fans and the rest of the Jets and the rest of the league something Sam Darnold really didn't, which was some of the resilience when dealing with those issues, because he got it up and going, and they almost won the game. Like, I know it wasn't close. It wasn't a close game, but they almost won it. If they got an onside kick, I would have been confident.
It was a close game. 19-14.
Yeah, like score-wise,
it was close. I'm saying
Panthers defense, though.
It was not. I wouldn't say it was a close game. Score-wise, it was close, and the Jets could have won it. But the Panthers definitely outplayed the Jets. Zach Wilson, though, showed me a lot of promise. And unfortunately, he's going to get the Patriots this week. And we know what Belichick and the Patriots do to Jets quarterbacks and rookie quarterbacks in general, and the Jets offensive line of past years. So Zach might be seeing ghosts a little bit, but I am confident that he did show a lot of things that can make people, I guess, a little bit more confident in what he can do this season and what the Jets can do. Again, people need to calm their expectations a little bit. Jets aren't going to surge to the playoffs. I doubt Zach Wilson wins Rookie of the Year from a statistical standpoint, but I do think they improve. And honestly, that's kind of what I'm looking for this year. I really do think week one, while it did at some point look like the same old Jets, it was an improvement from last year. And I hope they just kind of keep building on that. But I think really what you should come away with is the Panthers defense could be legit. Like, legitimately, Brian Burns.
Sure.
Brian
Burns is a name that I have been banking on to break out for so long. He had
everything. He had a QB hit. He had the sack, tackle for loss. He did everything that game. Yeah. Oh, man, that's a guy I'm so high on in this Panthers defense.
And if Shaq Thompson plays like he did week one, this is honestly, you can look at every single position, and they've got guys with so much talent. I'll run through it. Jeremy Chin.
So much potential.
Safety. Yeah. Dante Jackson, JC Horn, literally every single position, they've got guys there, and guys that are really up and coming. We talked about last year how their defense was the youngest in the league by a pretty large margin, but that there were going to be those games where they figured it out, and they figured it out last week. And I think while last year there were some games they figured out, some games they didn't, there will definitely be more games they figured out this year than last year. So they could be scary good.
For sure.
Srikar, do you want to start us off on the Titans and whatever the hell that was?
Yeah. I going into this year, I wasn't necessarily very high on the Titans defense. They changed a lot of personnel. Of course, they brought in Bud Dupree, Danico Autry's on that defensive line, Janoris Jenkins at corner, Caleb Farley they drafted with their first-round pick. A lot of changes. So this defense as a whole was, boom or bust. And I can firmly say bust after seeing week one. The Cardinals dropped 38 points easily on the Titans defense. 416 total yards, I believe. 4 Kyler Murray touchdowns. He was just dicing them up. Five touchdowns. Okay. Wow. Well, then that just puts everything into perspective for you. Because outside of DeAndre Hopkins, name one elite playmaker that the Cardinals have. Can you name one other one?
Not elite, but I like Christian Kirk.
Yeah, I mean, there aren't
not elite.
That counts.
There aren't many teams with multiple elite playmakers.
Yeah,
exactly. But it's just D-Hop really, because the run game, it's James Conner and Chase Edmonds. It's all right. It's good, but it's not amazing. So it's like the Titans defense could sink the Titans offense, and that's just the worst part of it all. It was my biggest fear coming into the year for the Titans, because as good as that offense looks on paper, the defense was super boomer bust, and it's looking like a bust right now. Not very confident in it. We'll see over the year if they begin to gel, but they just looked lost, and Kyler Murray took advantage of it, and he just diced them up. But on that same note, we should also shout out the Cardinals defense, because the Cardinals defense looks very improved from last year. So I'm excited to see how that works. Buda Baker still looks good. Byron Murphy, as Anish was saying, he looks solid. I think the Titans defense is just not where it needs to be right now. And there needs to be a good balance for the Titans to really go far as a team. And right now, I just don't think they have it.
How are you not going to mention Chandler Jones with 5 sacks?
Yeah, I was gonna.
Oh yeah, exactly. Oh yeah.
I was just gonna say that.
Oh, I'm in Syracuse too. Go Orange, baby! But Chandler Jones, absolute monster. 5 sacks, incredible day. He was just on Ryan Tannehill the whole time. He made Taylor Lewan go on Twitter and literally admit that he was trash. It's crazy to me. And I mean, Chandler Jones was just dominant in every fashion on that day. So shout out to him. Go Orange.
He had a season-ending injury last year, and people were concerned how he would do. How's that? 5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and I was one of the. So context, Srikar, don't you have a bet with me that the Titans will win the division over the Colts? That's a bet that's out there.
Yeah,
and,
it is.
Titans got basically what I called the 2019 Browns moment, which is hype, a lot of hype, and they got humbled at home. And it's ironic because the Browns got humbled the same way
by the
Titans. So I kind of had a little bit of a smile watching that game. This defense, like it is a major issue. And ironically, like a guy I watch a lot, Colin Coward, his bold take was that the Titans would not have a winning season. That's a legit possibility considering the teams they have to play. And I think this defense is their secondary is inconsistent. They lost to Dory Jackson, Malcolm Butler. Aside from like Harold Landry, I mean, that front seven really couldn't get much going. And I'm not a fan of what this team. I mean, Kevin Byard and Harold Landry were the only 2 players that made somewhat of an impact during that game. And for the offense, I mean, they got humbled. Like, everyone was hyping up Derrick Henry, AJ Brown, Julio Jones. Byron Murphy, when he was playing on both of them, shut both of them down except for 1 touchdown. That's it. He was incredible. And that's a guy that I've been high on ever since he came into the league, I believe in 2019. He's been an absolute stud for this Cardinals team. And, learning under a guy like Pat Pete, it's his time now. And the Titans defense, major issue. And, I mean, if they go in shootouts, right? Like, or if they start getting falling from behind, Derrick Henry is essentially not as good as he can be. This is why I said Christian McCaffrey is the best back in the NFL, and I don't think it's that close. It's because Derrick Henry you can put swingers on the outside. I've said this multiple times. The Browns did it. The Ravens did it. I'm not saying it's easy, but if you put guys on the outside to kind of swing at him, it's really hard for him to go on the outside and really break off a big run. So that's something like to say. And I was also a believer that they rushed Taylor Lewan back. Like, I mean, this is a Pro Bowl left tackle who came off an ACL injury in week 6. That is a clear rush. You're rushing an offensive lineman off an ACL to play in week 1 when he hasn't really had a full time to recover. I know they put him in practice and stuff, but just it's not good enough. And he got absolutely manhandled. Like, I mean, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And he at least admitted it, but and I think the loss of Jack Conklin is also catching up to them. I know it's been, 2 years out, but yeah, this Titans team's got some concerns. They got humbled. I'm not going to say they're not going to be a playoff team or not even win their division. I think they're still a really good team on paper, but their pass rush was a concern last year and it still is. And if not more, that's what I'm going to end it on.
Yeah, I think you guys might have roasted them a little too far with that last line, Anish, because if I were to ask you guys who had more pressures week 1, the Cardinals or the Titans, who would
Titans.
You guess?
It was the Titans.
Yeah, I mean, Chandler Jones had 5 sacks, and Tannehill was under pressure the entire game, but the Titans actually had more pressures than the Cardinals.
I think that's a little skewed, though, considering Kyler tends to run out of the pocket a lot quicker than other quarterbacks. So, I mean, they're technically pressures, but, like, not really. Like, I know, like, stat-wise, it'll say that, but a guy
against
like
a pocket passer, it's much more impressive.
So, like, I would say it's a little bit skewed.
I disagree because, I mean, the reason Kyler rushes is because he sees the pressure and he's just able to get out of there. I think there were, if you watch the game, there were many times where the Titans kind of had Kyler dead to rights and they just couldn't bring him to the ground because of how mobile he is. But they did well. I mean, the pass rush was there. So I will at least give them that. The rest of it, the secondary was kind of terrible. They just weren't able to stop anything. Kyler looked so comfortable. He had excellent touch on the ball. The corners were just lost with Hopkins and Kirk and even AJ Green and Rondell Moore.
Fulton, I mean, that's a guy that I was really disappointed in.
Yeah, but the pass rush is there. I think they will struggle against mobile quarterbacks, and we'll get to that when if we talk about them in picks this week against the Seahawks, because I'm predicting another time that they kind of struggle against Russell Wilson, but the pass rush was there. I think Bud Dupree helped a little bit, and they were getting pressure. The problem is Kyler Murray brings that extra level, and that could come back to haunt the Titans, because in games like they might have to play against Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson and Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson, like you can't get through the AFC playoffs without facing a mobile quarterback. So it's going to be tough. But yeah, they were bad. I will give them that, though. They were good, I think, at getting pressure. And I think that as the season goes on, this Titans defense will improve a little bit, kind of bring back the pendulum swing to where we thought they would be, because they're not going to be this bad through the entire season. The Arizona Cardinals are an above average team on offense for sure. So yeah, they were bad, but they're going to bounce back. Just a matter of when, because this Titans team is not bad. They're a good football team. There's a reason there are a lot of people predicted them to win the division. So we'll spare them just a little bit. The next team we're going to talk about actually probably I think had the most impressive performance of week one, and that's the New Orleans Saints under new quarterback Jameis Winston. If you're new to the podcast, just go back and watch the last 3 episodes. We talked about Winston in every single one and have all been high on him. And if you're returning, you know just how much all 3 of us are excited. We're excited for Jameis Winston, thought he could be really good. And each thought he could get MVP votes if he played well. I was thinking he might make a Pro Bowl, and it seemed like he's on his way. And so the question that I want to bring up to you, because we know the Saints played well, are the Saints a more dangerous team with Drew Brees or with Jameis Winston as opposed to Drew Brees, or was this kind of just a 1-week fluke?
I think so. First, I saw a thing on ESPN where it was Jameis threw the ball 50 yards downfield, which was, and Brees had never done it in his 9,200 attempts. First off, I thought that was unnecessary Drew Brees slander, but that's okay. I think the Saints had the most overall impressive performance week one. That defense was incredible. Marshawn Lattimore played the best out of every corner, and I know he's injured, which really sucks, but he had the best cornerback performance out of anyone week one. He was incredible. But the Saints overall, I think they are, just because of that dynamic, right? It was limited in all the Saints losses that they had last year, and I believe they had 5, I think, including the playoffs. Every one of them, they didn't have a deep passing attack. And that's why, guys their receivers just couldn't get open. They couldn't get separation, because in short passing game, when you have linebackers that can cover sideline to sideline, it's just hard for, a guy like Drew Brees to really scheme him open as accurate as he is. And I think, with this additive and with this new dynamic that Winston brings to this team, I think it's very, very, scary for other teams that are going to have to guard it. And Winston didn't even throw for that much in terms of yardage. And I feel like he didn't really need to. Kamara, helped kind of slow the game down. And it was just that Saints defense that really propelled him, because when Jack and I were saying this, and I know we were doing the over under for wins, I think Jack and I both hit over, and Srikar went under or something, or pushed. But the reason why I went over was because I thought they still were a really complete team. And I think, they didn't lose anybody besides their quarterback, and they still had a guy who still learned the system and, got some time. He even got some time in a playoff game where he threw a touchdown pass. He was well-oriented with Sean Payton's system, and the Saints still have everybody that they needed on defense. Cam Jordan, Marcus Williams, Marshawn Lattimore, they have all these guys. And I think this just goes to show, in terms of the dangerous team, I want some credit on Sean Payton's name. I think this guy is a top 3 coach in the NFL. And, despite, all the changes that they've had, even in the last 4 years with receivers, defensive schemes, I mean, he's been there every single step of the way in terms of offense too, just keeping them afloat, with injuries, no matter what. Even Kamara would go down, Thomas went down. They were still a consistent playoff contender, a Super Bowl threat, albeit they never made it. But this team is very dangerous, and I think, they could challenge the Bucs. They could, if they win, a couple of these games. And like I said back in one of those hot takes that I made, Jameis Winston could really garner some MVP votes if he keeps this up. It's not even just about the buzz or whatever. It's just how he's playing. He's played great, and he controlled the tempo, was very efficient in the red zone. I was very impressed with the Saints.
Jack, my answer to your question is I was very impressed, but I'm going to have to wait another week, because here's the thing. Jameis Winston is known throughout his career for being wildly inconsistent. So while he could have had that sort of game going up against the Panthers with a shaken up offensive line, of course, Eric McCoy is hurt. Cesar Ruiz is coming in at center. With a brand new offensive line against this Panthers defense, let's see how he does. But here's the thing that I noticed from that game. It's that the Saints have the formula in place. And that formula is that Jameis Winston will not lose the game, and the supporting cast rather will win the game. That's how I think it should be throughout the season, because if Jameis Winston stays, conservative, turnover free, I think it's perfect for him. He doesn't need to be that guy that airs it out all the time. Like 148 yards and 5 touchdowns is the most Jameis Winston thing I've ever heard in my life. Like that is such a weird stat line, but it works perfectly because it is exactly what the Saints need from him. And no turnovers is the best part about all of that. So I think the Saints have the formula. And while every game won't be, 38-3 blowouts, they have the formula. They will win games. And I think they're still competitive, but I still need another week because I need to see how Jameis Winston does against the Panthers. I am not, too crazy about the Saints winning that game, going to Carolina with all the injuries and whatnot. Of course, Lattimore's getting thumb surgery. David Onyemata is still suspended. I think they get Bradley Roby this week. I don't know. I think they do. So that'll help. But I don't know. I think the O-line being shaken up might, hurt Jameis a little bit, but let's see how he does. But from right now, like from what I saw, very impressive. I can't say that I'm not impressed because for a guy that's been dogged basically his whole career, I mean, this was a statement win against the Packers, against Aaron Rodgers. I was so close to picking the Saints and I back out and then look what happens. But I mean, that's just football. But I'm very proud of Jameis Winston. I think he impressed me a lot, and I'm excited to see what he does next week. Let's hope he doesn't, be the Jameis that I think he's going to be.
The stat line might be the most Jameis Winston thing you've ever seen, but the Chiefs-Browns game and the Chiefs comeback is the most Patrick Mahomes thing, the most Tyreek Hill thing, the most Chiefs thing that we've ever seen. It makes sense because that's just what they do. You think back to the Texans game in the playoffs, and this is just a microcosm of that. Like it's what the Saints do, it's what the Chiefs do every time. Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, the defense, Andy Reid. It's just kind of every normal week to them. The Browns jumped out to an early lead. They seemed to be dominating, but the door was always open. And you know who hits the door quicker than anyone else, and that's Patrick Mahomes. Anish, I know it was a crushing defeat. I know you don't want to say anything good about your Browns right now or talk about this game very much at all, but you gotta, and we're going to force you to. Chiefs beat the Browns. Your reaction, I want to hear it.
Oh, dude, you have no idea how sad I was after. Okay, first thing I just want to say, Jameis Winston, I've yet to see him in a clutch situation, so hopefully we get to see him in that, and that will be a true test. Okay, now, that 22-10 lead, you have no idea how happy I was. Those first 3 quarters were the best 3 quarters that the Browns could have possibly played. I thought they hit on everything. I mean, our offense was literally, it wasn't staggering at all. It was perfect. I mean, hitting on the run, Baker was tremendous. And look, I could talk about this game for like 30 minutes, but I want to keep it as short as possible. I don't want any Baker slander on this particular game because that throw, I know that it got intercepted. I know he could have thrown it a little bit further out, but he did get tripped up and he was kind of falling forward. But the Chiefs, someone told me that the Chiefs are the only team that can win a game in a quarter. And I completely agree with that. I just don't get it. I mean, we march down the field, go up 29-20, and this dude is thrown first play of the drive, rolls right, falling away, back foot, throws literally, I think it was like 50 yards in the air. Perfect throw to Tyreek Hill for a 75-yard score. I mean, I was so mad. Only he can do that. And, a guy who's just so smart, so gifted, so talented, and just that's why he's the best quarterback in football. It's like, that's what's going to do you. And I think the momentum, crowd noise was a big factor. I think this is the first game that the Browns or any, a lot of teams are playing in full capacity stadiums in like 2 years. So crowd noise definitely got to guys like our punter, Nick Chubb fumbled the football. I think that was probably the turning point in the game. But I'll let these guys say positive things. I thought, if we had Jedrick Wills for the whole game, maybe things may have been a little bit different. If we had Odell, maybe things would have been a little different, but I don't want to go on what if. I'm going to say it like this. I don't like Joe Woods, what he's been doing the last 2 years. I'm not a fan of our defensive coordinator. And, Ronnie Harrison, again, I thought the running backs coach should have been suspended or at least fined or something, some type of ejection for what he did because he pushed him first. Just a lot of things that you look back on the game with, but I think the worst thing about it was just, we let momentum kind of we beat ourselves. I think that's the thing. And, now worst part is long-term because, a lot of people are going to say the Browns are going to, be in the spot again. We're not going to have tiebreaker over Kansas City. So, playing in that environment again in winter, when game slows down, they're going to be louder. I don't know. Like that's something that concerns me. So, this is a game that, I picked us to lose, but I didn't expect it to be this good. I didn't expect us to play this good. So, the fact that we lost like that really hurts, but there's some stuff to look forward to. And I think I'll let these two handle that. I don't want to say anything positive because this loss just really, really sucked.
I mean, if I'm a Browns fan, like I have my head held high. Like I'm confident in this Browns squad because even though you lost, like it was probably like, the best. There's no best loss, but like it inspired confidence for me. Now you do lose the tiebreaker, which is bad in the long run, but the Browns played the Chiefs literally perfectly throughout the first 3 quarters, like perfectly. And then it's just a few like bad plays that can just turn the whole situation around. And we just saw that in effect here. Obviously, me and Anish, we've seen Chiefs comebacks live. Mine hurt a little bit more, but like,
yeah,
it's just what Mahomes does. When you have 3 generational offensive talents, you have Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and Patrick Mahomes, you can't afford to make those mistakes. Even the best teams, the elite teams in the AFC and the NFC, they have to play perfect games to beat this Chiefs squad, which is absolutely mind-blowing to me. And the Bucs did it in the Super Bowl. The Browns came out here and they played 3 quarters of literally perfect football, and look where it got them. And then obviously the 2 turnovers, the Chubb fumble, Gillen had a botch snap. It just, everything just fell apart like right in front of our very own eyes. And that is a classic Chiefs win right there. But I was kind of thinking about this as I was watching, Baker throw that pick to Mike Hughes. I was thinking in January, like imagine these 2 teams meet again. Do you think Baker Mayfield can lead a game-winning drive in the playoffs under 2 minutes? Do you think he can do it against this Chiefs team? I'm just asking.
If I'm gonna be real, we haven't.
I don't know if he can do it.
I don't know because look, he's done it. Like he hasn't not done it before. Like he's done it in games, right? Like the Texans won. He would have done it against Lamar if had not been for him coming back. Like he would have done it, but it's not that he can't. It's just I don't know. That concerns me, but. Again, I've said this a majority of the time. Like, this is the best Browns quarterback we've had in 31 years.
Oh, for sure.
I'm not, I would pay him, but that is probably the biggest question right now. Linebackers and those are two questions for the Browns right now that, I just don't know the answer to. And
yeah, I know the Browns didn't have Odell, they didn't have Jedrick Wills, but at the same time, the Chiefs didn't have Tyrann Mathieu.
Yep.
They didn't have Frank Clark.
Yeah. So like, it goes both ways. Exactly.
Like fully healthy teams. Can the Browns beat the Chiefs in January? I have no idea. I think they have probably the best shot in the AFC aside from maybe the Bills if they can get it together.
I think this week kind of showed us. I think the Browns
But the Browns played them literally perfectly, and they have the formula to beat the Chiefs. Like, here's the thing, though. A good run game will only get you so far because if you fall into a hole, you're asking Baker to get you back into the game. Can he do that against the Chiefs? I don't know if he can. It concerns me too, Anish, and that's where I'm kind of with you. But I mean, if I'm a Browns fan, I'm still taking some positives away from this. Like, I'd still be not necessarily happy, but I'd still be more confident in this Brown squad. And I think they could make a run in January, but it's a long season. It's a very long season, and you can't hang your heads over one loss that was almost perfectly played against the Chiefs. So if I'm a Browns fan, I mean, keep your head up.
Yeah, and if you're worried about not having the tiebreaker against the Chiefs, thinking that you might be in a position where you have the exact same record as the team that's gone to the Super Bowl out of the AFC 2 years in a row, I think you're fine. And I think that game showed you enough to realize that the Browns are one of those teams. Everyone's thought in the last couple of years they can be, they've got the talent to be. They are. And I feel even after a loss, confident saying that. I've said it all year. This loss only made me more confident. You guys have said just about everything possible about this Browns squad in this game. And I agree with basically everything you said. The Browns were great. The game plan was perfect. Just a couple of mistakes at the wrong times and a couple players being out. But just you change one little thing, and that game could have been a Browns W against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. That's impressive. The most impressive a loss can get in week 1. Before we get to picks, I have one question for you guys. What is one thing that people might say is, an overreaction to week 1 that in your mind we will see in the next coming weeks and by midseason and by the end of the season really wasn't an overreaction? What's the one thing that you can confidently say, this is an overreaction, this is real?
Okay, so it's a good question to ask after week 1 because overreactions are just a classic thing after 1 week. But I saw someone actually argued that the Steelers should be the favorites in the AFC North over the Browns. Huh? And I was shocked. That was the prime week 1 overreaction. Like, that is the overreaction of all overreactions, if I've ever seen one. That shocked me. Now, I do not believe in the Steelers' offense whatsoever. Their defense is probably the best in football, but the offense, not good. I do not like it at all. But, I mean, I don't see how you can make that argument. The Browns played the best team in the AFC, arguably the league's best team, perfectly for 3 quarters. The Steelers played the Bills good, but still, it didn't really inspire any faith that they're going to beat out the Browns in the AFC North, especially when they match up head to head. I'm taking the Browns. So I don't see like how that take makes any real sense to me, at least. But I mean, in the AFC North, anything can happen. I just don't think it's a very good take, and I think it's definitely an overreaction after 1 game.
Yeah. But what's your overreaction that you think like is not an overreaction?
My reaction, okay. I would say that
Jalen Hurts is the real deal.
That the Jaguars are the worst team in the NFL.
I like both those. I'm leaning more towards like the Falcons might be one of the worst teams in the league.
Yeah. I think the Falcons are bottom 3.
Or that the Ravens, you might just not be able to compete this year. And I've been saying that for a really long time. Like
you and I both.
I said I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs, but anyways, there's a ton of overreactions. We could talk about those all the time. We talked about those last year a lot. And like, I'll just put out the little disclaimer. Week 1 is week 1. There's a reason why every team is going to play 17 games now. It's because week 1, it doesn't show you everything. So speaking of that, we'll get into the week 1 or week 2 picks actually. Anish has got 15 minutes till class. So we're going to zoom through these.
Less for sure.
Same drill
rapid speed,
week.
Baby.
We're not going to pick every single game, but the rest of them you can find in a couple days on our community page, or if you go to our Instagram stories, you can see our picks as well as vote for yours. I went 9-7 last week. Anish, Srikar, you guys and the fans went 8-8. It was a crazy week, but now we got week 2. It's a different deal going through so Anish can make the bus. Bengals versus Bears, one of the 5 games we're picking this week. Anish, who is your pick?
Oh, come on. Why do I have to go for? Okay. Congrats to Srikar for getting a Bears pick right. Gotta congratulate.
Y'all forgot the whole second half of the season.
We're remembering the first half because again, 7 in a row wrong is got to be some type of insane feat. I'm taking linear algebra, so I don't know if that's statistically like I'm gonna learn how to predict that, but that's pretty low odds. So
choose your pick.
For Bengals Bears, I'm gonna go with the Bears to bounce back, and I think it's at home. I think that listen, if they get down a little bit, I think I wouldn't be surprised if they just throw in Fields for a little bit more plays than they did against the Rams. Obviously, he had that rushing touchdown, but I think they're a little bit more poised, and I think the Bengals got a little bit ahead of themselves. I mean, they played great against Minnesota, but, I just don't know if that's consistent. This is definitely a game that I can see them winning, but I think they had the crowd noise behind them. But I think here Chicago is going to be loud. It's going to be rolling, and I think that secondary is going to play a little bit better. I'm going to go with the Bears.
No, the Bengals could definitely win this game. They have the better quarterback. Joe Burrow is definitely better than Andy Dalton. But again, the Bears are making their home debut. They're back in front of their fans. They're desperate for a win in the NFC North. So I think this is going to be a tight game the whole way, but I think the Bears are going to squeak it out last second.
I would originally pick the Bengals or the Bears, and I was kind of leaning towards that. And I took a look at the box score. Joe Burrow was pressured and sacked a lot week 1, and they still managed to pull off the win. Everyone remembers that meme where it was Joe Burrow. If he was protected by Penei Sewell, he could throw a deep ball to anybody. And then the flip side of it was if they drafted Jamar Chase, the ball couldn't get to him because, no one would be blocking for him. That wasn't the case in week 1. And so I really don't think, and also Khalil Mack and the Bears pass rush kind of had a disappointing game going against Andrew Whitworth and the rest of that Rams offensive line. And so I think even if they improve, that's kind of the number one place they can improve on defense, in my opinion. I just don't think that it's really going to phase Joe Burrow too much. It's going to phase the Bengals too much. And I think that on the ground and through the air, The Bengals are probably going to be able to win this game on the offensive side of the ball. And of course, Andy Dalton doesn't inspire me too much at the quarterback position. And yeah, it's a revenge game for him, but I think they fall a little bit short. I'm going to go with Cincinnati. Our second game of the week, though, Bills, Dolphins. The Dolphins pulled off what was kind of a disappointing game, but they still won. And the Bills just kind of disappointing all over. Anish, do the Bills bounce back?
Why am I going first? Well,
what is clockwise? Okay, come on now. We're going clockwise.
All right. Well, all right. You know what? This has been on my mind for a while. This one I tossed and turned about, but I think the Bills bounce back. Josh Allen always plays Miami pretty well. And I think the Bills just have the Dolphins number. And this is a loss that, really, I think gutted them. Like, at home, I think they had their head held too high, and a Sean McDermott led team is not going to do that a second week in a row. So I'm going to go with the Bills here. I don't want to elaborate too much because I got to catch the bus. So.
Yeah, it's obviously a big game. Bills don't want to be 0-2. But I mean, the Dolphins, if they win this game, I mean, they can really establish themselves as a contender for the division. But I'm going to go with the Bills to bounce back as well. I don't think Josh Allen will lose to Miami here. And it's just tough to see the Bills at 0-2. So I'm going to be confident in Buffalo this week.
Me too. I mean, at some point you can't overreact to week 1, and week 2 is still kind of the same deal where you got to stick to your gut, your preseason predictions, because they haven't changed all that much. We've seen 1 week of football. So I'm sticking with my preseason prediction that the Bills are the best team in this division, could be the best team in the AFC. I think Josh Allen bounces back. And I think that the Dolphins defense, while it's good, is not quite as good as the Steelers defense. And I don't think their offense is even better than the Pittsburgh Steelers offense, which is dismal in its own right. So I think the Bills pull it off. So it's a Bills sweep. And Srikar, will let you go first because Anish doesn't want to go first. For Eagles, 49ers, are you picking the upset against your boys?
Oh, no. I'm not going to do that. Here's the thing. I was thinking about it because, I mean, this is the game where we find out if the Eagles are for real. Because the Niners have to go cross country, and you're playing in the early slot. You're playing at 10 or 1 on my time. Is that enough to give Philly the win here? I'm going to say no. I'm going to take the Niners, but I'm going to be very cautious about it. And I could have rambled a lot more, but I know Anish doesn't have the time for that.
Appreciate you.
Yes, I'm going to let him go now.
All right, I'm going on this one. Well, I'm picking a Philadelphia upset. Yes, I am. And I did it last year. I put money on the game. And yes, it was because of my Wentz bias, but it paid off. And I'm going to say they pull off an upset here. They're at home. The crowd is going to be roaring. I think Jerron Hargrave has a great game. And this is really the all-in on Jalen Hurts. This is really just the true testament on that. And who's guarding the receivers? I like Devontae Smith. Who's guarding him? Like, Jason Verrett is out. I don't like Drake
Emmanuel Mosley.
Yeah, Mosley and
Josh Norman.
Lenoir, how do you even say it?
Diamador Lenoir.
Yeah, Lenoir, or however you say his name.
Josh Norman's also going to be starting.
Yeah, Josh Norman's also going to be good, but they're old. I think Philly goes on an upset. This one's a bold one. But and I'm not one for bold picks, but I got Philly in an upset.
Yeah, we got some variance in picks, which is something that wasn't a huge thing last week. And it's a Philly upset without Carson Wentz in Philadelphia. That's just a milestone moment right there. Maybe, getting over the breakup between the Eagles and the Carson Wentz saga and all that. But I'm going with the 49ers. Like I said, with the last pick, I'm just going to trust my preseason predictions. I think the Niners are a much better football team.
Also, Javon Kinlaw's back this week.
Yeah, that's true.
That'll make a big difference.
Imagine if they took CeeDee Lamb, though. But no, I think the Niners were overall, they were great up until they were a little bit disappointing at the end. I don't think that happens again. I think Shanahan figures it all out, and I don't think he lets that performance happen a second time. I think the Niners, honestly, they're not going to pull away as early, but I don't think that the Eagles look as good because I honestly just don't think they're that good of a team as they were last week. And the Niners defense is a lot different than the Falcons defense. Cowboys Chargers is the next game, and you start us off.
Come on, bro. You know what? All right, whatever. The Cowboys have to travel, from Tampa to LA. Chargers first game at home. Not many Chargers fans. I actually met a couple here at Cal, but I'm gonna say the Chargers actually pull off the victory here. And I just think the Cowboys have a little bit too much turmoil this week with Lyle and DeMarcus Lawrence. I think the Chargers are a little bit more healthy, and I think that O-line's been great. Derwin James is back. He had a 90 PFF grade. He was all over the field against Washington. I'm very impressed with how they looked. I think Eckler has a pretty good game, and also Keenan Allen, just great. I mean, Trevon Diggs versus Keenan Allen, that's a good matchup to see. I want to see that. But yeah, I'm going to pick the Chargers at home.
This was the toughest pick of the week for me. I mean, I had a lot of trouble with this one because here's the thing. The Cowboys are traveling from Tampa to LA on extra rest. Like they played on a Thursday. So I don't think that's as big of a factor. And this is going to be a Cowboys home game. Like
Yeah, well,
the Cowboys fans are going to take over that stadium. So, I mean, I don't know. Could the Cowboys win? Definitely. But I think the big deciding factor was DeMarcus Lawrence being out. I think that is going to be a huge loss. If you can't get pressure on Herbert, he is going to throw it all over you. So I'm going to go with the Chargers here, but very cautiously.
I had thought about the Cowboys because I was impressed with them week 1, but just to cut to the chase, there's too many things going against them right now with the Lyle Collins suspension. Michael Gallup's out. DeMarcus Lawrence is out. And you're right. They've got to travel pretty far. It's just too much to overcome, I think. And the Chargers defense is far better than the Cowboys defense. And, while the Cowboys offense may be a little bit more potent than the Chargers, I think just situationally and culminationally on both sides of the ball, I got to go with the Chargers. I think Herbert and Dak both have big days, but in the end, it's which defense do I trust? It's Los Angeles and a home game. I honestly think, though, there are more Chargers fans than we actually think, and that's a fan base that's kind of actually growing. There were a lot of fans in Washington from LA. So it's a growing fan base, so I'm not sure how many more times we can make that joke, but I'll start for the big kahuna of the week.
I'm going last on this one.
Yeah, okay. I'll start. I've made the mistake before taking the Baltimore Ravens over the Kansas City Chiefs. I won't do it again. The Kansas City Chiefs are just too good of a football team for now. I've said many times I think that they will kind of tail off towards the end of the season, maybe into the playoffs, have a little bit of a Super Bowl curse or a hangover. But from what I saw from them last week and the Ravens last week and kind of coming into this season, I do think the Chiefs are a much better football team than the Ravens. And in prime time and in big games, there's no one I trust more than Patrick Mahomes at the moment. And Lamar Jackson, maybe we got to start asking some questions about him after his costly fumble. And he just really hasn't been coming up too clutch for the Ravens. I think the Chiefs win, not a dominating win, but I do think they win nonetheless.
Mahomes is 3-0 against the Ravens. And last year, he threw for 5 touchdowns on that Monday Night Football game. Look, the Ravens are beat up. They're on a short week, and they are traveling, or not traveling. They're in Baltimore to play arguably the best team in football, who they just don't play well against. I mean, this is an easy Kansas City pick for me. And on primetime, too, I trust Mahomes more than Lamar. So I gotta go with Kansas City here.
If we could put the clip last year of week 3, what I said, I yelled into my mic and I said, Mahomes boy. I yelled that as loud
Let's
as I
not
could
start that
because
again.
I was the only one that took
ears.
Kansas City over Baltimore that week, and I never looked back for picks. I think that was the whole point ever since that week. But yeah, I'm going Kansas City here. I don't even think it's like a debate. Mahomes boy versus the Ravens. I can't even say Mahomes boy after what he did last week in the division over. Like it hurts to say now. So I think the Mahomes boy nickname is going to kind of take a turn, which sucks. But yeah, I mean, Baltimore being 0-2 is making me happy. But yeah, I think the Chiefs are just better in both phases of football, and I trust Patrick Mahomes more as you guys said. Ravens are too beat up, like you said. They have to travel across the coast, and I mean, this is a little bit concerning. 0-2. Their schedule is not getting that much easier. So let's see for Baltimore. I mean, Jack and I both said that this team could not make the playoffs, and hey, let's see.
Yeah, well, that's all we got for you, guys. This time, a really shortened outro. You can find all of our picks, like I said, YouTube community post, pinned comment in a couple days on our Instagram page. Go follow, vote for this week. You can follow our Twitter, our website down below. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please consider leaving a 5-star review. If you're on YouTube, leave a like, a comment, and subscribe. We've been the Cold Hard Truth Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you next time. Anish, go catch that damn bus.